Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Today I'm going to be talking about the two-part episode from season 3, The Conflict. The Conflict covers the story of Martha Corrine's family, her son Boone, Wade, and Vera, who live up in the backwoods. They are being evicted. Basically, the government is coming through and taking over the land to create some sort of a national park or something like that. So they have been given notice that they need to move from their land down to the flatlands where the government has built new houses for them. Martha Corrine has been up on that mountain in that home that she and her husband built ever since she was married in her teens. She has no interest in moving, nor does her family. They like their way of life. It's simple, but it suits them. So she is prepared to fight, including with violence, if need be, to stay on her land. The entire Walton family is brought into the situation when Boone comes down to basically say that Martha Corrine has asked the Walton men to come up and help defend the Walton land. This creates conflict within the family because everyone does go up to help support Martha Corrine and her family, but Zeb is the only one who really is willing to do whatever it takes. John is much more of a moderate man and doesn't feel that picking up a gun is the answer, and John Boy certainly doesn't. The younger children are excluded from all of what's going on, but Olivia and Esther, Grandma, also hear what's happening and have reason for concern. So this does create tension between our relatives, Boone and Wade and Martha Corrine, and the rest of the Walton family. But they want to support the family and find a way to help resolve this peacefully. There were a number of things I noticed when watching this episode. Early on, we are all riding in the back of the truck and we are eating watermelon, we are singing songs, and then as we head further up the mountain and we're hearing noises and sounds and excavation going on, many of us stand up and there's whole sections where we are standing up in the back of this truck as it's moving. I don't think it was going very fast, but still I kept thinking, wow, no seatbelts, no safety precautions at all. And, none of us seemed the least bit concerned, and I don't think I was the least bit concerned at the time. But yes, definitely something that would not happen in real life these days, not in the city anyway. When all of the Walton family does go up to Martha Corrine's cabin, the boys go off to search for Indian arrowheads. The girls are sent to pick blackberries to make ice cream. And then there's a sort of a powwow amongst the grown-ups. And a jug of moonshine is passed along because Boone makes bootleg moonshine. And Zeb is right in there, happy to sample. John has some. John Boy takes the jug and samples it, and Olivia is not at all pleased about that, and you can definitely see that on her face. John Boy isn't so sure that he liked it either, but he probably felt that peer pressure that we likely all have experienced in one way or another in our lives. There's a very cute segment when the girls are out picking blackberries and they are chased by these feisty pigs, and they seem really aggressive, and the girls find themselves climbing up a tree and getting out of reach of these pigs, and they're not quite sure how long they're going to have to hang around up in this tree. So Mary Ellen decides that she'll be brave and she'll go down and she'll shoo these pigs off, but the pigs seem to be on the attack and she finds herself squealing and back up in the tree. And the next thing you know, we are all screaming, help, help, help. And the boys hear this and are very alarmed and concerned for us and come running into the rescue, only to stop short as they see that the problem is that there's a bunch of pigs there. So they think that that's hysterical and get a really good laugh out of that and tease us mercilessly, and then calmly sort of shoo the pigs away and make fun of us because they don't consider the pigs were all that dangerous. But Mary Ellen quips, well, you didn't see them. They were, they seemed really mean. They looked, you weren't here. So I think she's feeling a little defensive at that point, but I thought it was a really cute sequence. Because we have picked all these blackberries, and because we do say that Martha Corrine's blackberries make the best ice cream, there is a whole sequence where you actually see them making this ice cream. I had no idea. I've never made homemade ice cream. And it's quite a process. Some of you may know that, but I was amazed, and it seemed like an awful lot of work. But we did get to sample ice cream afterwards, so there's a whole scene afterwards when the ice cream's been made and we are eating that ice cream, and I did enjoy that. John, Olivia, and Esther do convince Martha Corrine to go down and at least take a look at the house that the government is offering her. Grandma is on quite a sales pitch in the house and points out the running water and the electricity, and there's a sweet moment with Martha Corrine sort of testing this light bulb on and off and on and off the switch, and I think she's a little bit fascinated by that. And then Esther is very happy to go show her the kitchen and the new green linoleum. I got a kind of a chuckle out of that, because the idea of being excited over new green linoleum just pointed out the era. I don't know how many people these days would be excited about green linoleum. I always felt, for someone who was raised in the city as Richard Thomas was, he was raised in New York, his parents were dancers, he was raised around the ballet world, and yet I thought he always made a very convincing country boy, with chopping wood, cutting down trees, handling an axe, milking cows and goats and all of that. I don't know, for those of you who really grew up in the country and did these things from the time you were little, if he's as convincing to you as he is to me. But for someone else who was raised in the city, I was pretty impressed. Grandpa keeps challenging John Boy, because John Boy is pretty darn set in his not wanting to pick up a gun and actually shoot at the people coming to evict Martha Corrine's family. Zeb feels that, you're a Walton and you defend your kin, you defend the land, and, this is what you need to do. So there is quite an intense scene here where John Boy and Grandpa face off. And ultimately, John Boy feels the pressure, and when the time comes, he does pick up a gun. John has taken Martha Corrine to go see if they can appeal to congressmen, senators, higher up the chain in the government, to try and see if they can overturn this notice that they have to leave their land. So he goes with her and they make an appeal. And there's a point where Ralph makes a very eloquent speech to these politicians, and it reminded me of, in real life, that Ralph had very strong convictions and did run for public office, and I felt that it was a shame that he never had the opportunity to actually serve, because he had a real call to help people and to defend people and be a voice for change. So this was a little bit of that foreshadowing for me of seeing how appealing he was. There was a point in time where, I don't know where it started, but it was going around that, if John Walton ran for president, he'd win. And the way that Ralph portrayed John Walton, I think I would have voted for him. I loved when Martha Corrine sat down and wrote to President Roosevelt, making an appeal, just explaining her position and her life and what all this meant to her. And what a wonderful contrast between this very simple country woman who really never went anywhere, appealing to the most powerful man in the country. Little spoiler here, John Boy gets shot. I had totally forgotten about that. I'm watching the episode and all of a sudden, boom, he's down. I'm like, my brother got shot. Why did I not remember this? Probably because he was okay. So that's the other part of the spoiler, is he's fine. But it was quite an intense moment, and culminated in reason coming to be. Grandpa realizes the potential consequences of this escalating violence and shuts everything down and realizes that, he certainly never intended for John Boy to be injured and potentially killed. So it is a turning point, and ultimately Martha Corrine is convinced that the best thing to do is to concede that she's not going to win this, and she is going to be moved, and she concedes and moves off the mountain. As this was a 2-part episode, I'm going to do this behind the scenes in 2 parts. I will be back next time with some direct comments from our director, Ralph Senensky. I asked him a number of questions about the episode and for his recollections. So I'm going to share those with you in the second half of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons about the conflict. So join me next time for that. Thanks for watching.